Hello friends, Amy Astrab here with Astra Stamping. I have got the Storybook Fun Fold card today. It is a tri-fold card, and with this example that I'm using today, I am doing the Santa's delivery stamps and the coordinating dies from Stampin' Up. I have tied this shut with a cute little ribbon, which is optional. And this card will open up like a storybook. And really you could use any set of stamps and or dies that you choose, but this is the one I'm going to do today. It is a Christmas card, of course. To get started, I am going to need a half sheet of cardstock. I have chosen to use Balmy Blue on this one, and this has been cut down to 4 1/4 by 11 inches. So it has been cut in half on the short end so that you've got the long card. And then we're going to score it so that it is in thirds. And roughly that dimension is going to be 3 5/8 from each end, but that is really just kind of a give and take. That is not exactly the exact dimensions you will need to make it work. So what I have done is I have scored it at 3 5/8, but then kind of forced that score to be an even 1/3 of the card. Be sure that you are using your scoring blade and not the cutting blade. And I'm just going to rotate this around and score at 3 5/8 from the other side. So that when I make my folds, I should roughly be at 1/3 of the card. And here I have already messed it up. No surprise there. Okay, so I got that one a little bit off. So let's try this one more time. What you can do, which is what I'm actually doing here, is I did the 3 5/8, and now I'm just going to lay it in here where that score line needs to be. Make a good hard score and go ahead and fold it over. And I will have just a little bit of overhang then on this last little bit, which you can throw in here and easily trim off that excess. What I'm going to do is open that up because I don't want to run the risk of cutting that where it's scored. So we'll just trim that tiny little bit off. There we go, perfection. So I'm just going to use my bone folder and go ahead and get that nicely burnished so that my folds will stay. And then I'm going to open it back up. What we're going to do next is we are going to take a piece of basic white cardstock. Now this is pre-cut already. This is cut to 2 1/2 by 11. So you need the full length, and this is 2 1/2 wide. And what we're going to do is we're going to take and tear down the middle. And you want to just go ahead and you want it to be a little bit uneven because this is going to look like a snowy background. So by all means, if you want to make it go a little jagged more than just straight, really good idea to do that. So what we're going to do with this piece, we only need half of it for this card. The other half you can save for your next card. And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to glue that in place. Now, since we trimmed this, there will be just a slight overhang. So match it up on one end and we'll just snip it off on the other. So get my multi-purpose glue. And we'll go ahead and glue that in place. I left my glue out the other day. I didn't close it up tight, and it kind of got a little dry. So let me just stick my handy little pin in it that I keep just for such a purpose. And I'm going to go ahead and add my glue now to this piece. I'm not going to go all the way to the very end because I'm going to trim that off, and I don't want to run my scissors through the glue. So go ahead and glue that down in place. You just want to match up the bottom edge of your card and make sure it's lined up well in the corners. And yes, I know we've already scored this. We're going to just fold it again here after we get that all lined up. That's why I like using the glue, so you've got that little bit of wiggle room to make everything line up perfectly. And I'm just going to take my snips and go ahead and trim that little bit of overhang off. All right, and now I'm just going to go ahead and fold this just like I did before on those score lines. And I'm going to go ahead and give it another quick burnish because that's going to give you a good crease there where we've added our snow. We want our card to fold up nicely. So now we've got our snow done. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do my background. So on this card, I added these cute little, I don't know if you can see that. I've got the cute little, I call them stars. Maybe they're snowflakes. I'm not sure. They're just like a couple of little X's. And I'm going to use Versamark ink to just add some of those to the sky background. I'm just going to kind of twist and turn them as I'm adding them to the background because I want them to appear to be snow. There's not a real rhyme or reason for where you place them. They're really just kind of to fill in some of the background. Now I'm going to leave this corner because I stamped ho, ho, ho in this corner with Versamark as well. So I'm going to leave that corner empty so I can add those, and I may add some more of the stars again here in just a bit. Now I wanted to add some trees as well. So I used this great little tree stamp from the Snowman Magic set, as you see there. And I'm going to use Versamark with those as well and add those to the background. If you've got little trees like this in any of your stamp sets, it would be fine to use, but honestly, it's not super necessary. If you add them, great. And if you don't, that's quite all right too. And just kind of randomly, wherever you want to add some trees for interest in the background. I have a little bit going off the edge of the page there. All right. And now I'm going to get out the ho, ho, ho. And we'll get that on a block, and we'll go ahead and add that while we're at it. Just when you think you've got everything prepared, you realize you forgot one. All right, so I'm going to put a ho, ho, ho right here in the corner. And give it a good hard press and let that soak in well before I lift up. Very good. And then I am going to go ahead and add a couple little more of those little twinkles up there. In fact, I'm going to add a few more just kind of off the top of the card for extra variety and interest. All right. We'll call that sufficient. And then we can lay those aside. We are done with those for now. Okay, so next we need to stamp, color, and cut out all of the other. Actually, there's one more thing we're going to do before we do our stamping and our cutting. I have die cut the railroad tracks. So I'm going to go ahead and get those glued on here right across the snow. And then we'll go ahead and get that folded and burnished again. Now there is, if you look carefully, a top and a bottom, or a right and a wrong side on these die cuts. So you'll want to make sure you're adhering them all in the same direction so that it doesn't look weird. And I am, again, just using my multi-purpose glue for this. And I just kind of go right along the center of those spaces. You'll want to get just a little on the ends because we will have some overlap on those. So I'm going to go ahead and hopefully you can see this in the camera there. The one little edge is going to stick off of the card. We'll trim that off in a minute. I should have maybe not put my glue all the way to the end of that one, but too late now. All right, I'm going to do the same thing with this one. This time I do want to add some glue to both ends because this one will not run off the edge of the card. And we do want a little overlap. So this one's longer or that one's shorter. So we're just going to kind of line them up so that that space in between is approximately the same as the others. And then just continue it across your card. Okay. And since I've already made one of these, I have a partial piece left that I can go ahead and run to the edge of my card, and we'll trim as necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and add that now. So roughly you've got about 2.5 pieces of train track to make this go all the way across your card. This way it can be drying while we go ahead and work on our other elements. I'm going to go ahead again and fold my card so we get that train track to fold. We've got several layers on this bottom, and that's where tying it closed comes in handy or helpful in keeping your card closed. So just kind of burnish that a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and snip off those ends. In fact, I have a separate set of scissors I use just for sticky or gluey surfaces. Since I do have a little bit of glue on here, go ahead and use what I call my glue scissors or my sticky scissors. All right. Now we can set this part aside now, let that glue dry while we work on the rest of the elements for this card. Okay, so what I recommend you use now is going to be your Stamparatus. So I'm going to get mine out here. And you'll want to use both of your plates for this. So what I have done is I have taken and put, well, if I can find my cardstock, here we go. So I've cut my white cardstock in half the long way again so that we've got 4 1/4 by 11. And I'm going to place it in my Stamparatus. Now I have mine set up so that it's stamping over here on this edge, because if you get too far up into this corner, you don't always get a good, clean, clear impression the first time. So I am just going to do it over on this edge of the cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and scoot it down a little bit because I did not get them too close to this top edge for the very same reason. So let me get my magnets. I'll get this in place. Put some magnets down to hold it. Whoop. That's exactly what you don't want to do with your magnets. But all is well and good. They can break if they connect like that. Got that one little piece of train track stuck to me and it won't come off. There we go. Okay, so I've got this lined up where I want it. I'm going to go ahead and ink up those stamps with my Memento black ink. And the reason I like using the Memento is I'm going to be coloring with my Stampin' Blends. And they work very well with the Memento ink. The Memento ink does not run or smear or blur too much when used with the blends, as long as it is good and dry when you start coloring. So we're going to give that a good press. And voila, we've got good coverage. I'm very happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to flip it around this way. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the other end of this cardstock. Now, the ones that I am stamping twice are the ones that I have lined up on my Stamparatus on this plate. And that is the train car, the Christmas tree, the candy canes, and the packages. Oh, and the penguin, because I wanted 2 little penguins. All right, so I've got that lined up good. And I'm going to wiggle it down just a little bit to give me some room for my other stamps in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead, make sure I get a good, clean, crisp, clear image. All right, I am happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is bring in my other plate. My other plate, I have the engine, which I only need 1 of. I have the smokestack for the engine, which I only need 1 of. And I have the little sign pointing in the direction the train is headed, which I only wanted 1 of. So I've got that lined up so that it will fit right in between the other 2 sets of images, and I've got all of it on this 1 half sheet of cardstock. So I'm going to ink that up. Now this is the best way I know to tell you to set things up so that you can make many multiples of these cards quickly and easily. It is a big time saver. You don't have to keep trying to stamp things individually and remember how many of what. This just worked out really, really well for me. So if you're making multiples, I highly suggest doing it this way. All right, good, crisp, clean, clear image there. We can go ahead and I'm going to just take a quick minute to clean the ink off of my stamps so that they don't get on anything else. Because for the time being, I am done stamping these. And what I am going to do is I'm going to bring in my sentiment stamps at this point. And because I have more than 1 Stamparatus, I actually have another plate, but you can always set this up either on just your blocks or when you're finished with one of your plates, you can just set it up for use with your sentiments. So I have forgotten how I did my alignment to get these on here, but I put them right on the same sheet. Just got to get the alignment right. Now, what I typically do is use my paper grid paper that fits in the Stamparatus, and then I just kind of draw a little line around where I want them to be. And I didn't, I didn't get these over quite far enough, so I don't know that I'm going to be able to fit them on here. Yeah, I did not. So I'm going to show you what I did on my other one, because I'm not going to actually make you watch me color all these. So I'm going to take those out, and you'll see what I've done here is I lined these up over further on the edge, and I just put this in and stamped my sentiments that I want to have on the card right on the same piece of cardstock. So for that particular one, I am just going to have to wing it and put it on some scrap paper. So put these magnets out of the way, and I'm going to show you what I did with this now. All right, let's move some of these other things out of the way. So I chose to color mine with Stampin' Blends, and I can definitely, if you have questions about what colors I used, happy to share that with you, but I'm not going to bore you with all those details right now. What I am going to recommend is if you put your sentiments on this same page, I would recommend you go ahead and cut those sentiments off first before you do your die cutting of your other pieces. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Now, I did not make hard and fast measurements for these. I just kind of threw them in here and cut a rectangle for the Merry Christmas that's going on the front. And you can just use the little lines on your blade to kind of give you an idea of where you're at and how far in you're cutting. I don't want to cut into my train's car, the car that goes to the train. So I'm going to go just about that far. And then I'm going to turn this. And I'm going to just go ahead and line up that edge with what I've already cut, because I can see where I've cut. And then I'm just going to come this way. I don't want to cut into my tree or my candy cane, so I got to be careful how far I go. And that's plenty far for the Merry Christmas. And I'm going to be cutting this You Make This Season Jolly separately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slice that off now. You can just kind of line up how much you want, and you can look at where that line is to get a feel for what you want to do. And then I am just going straight over to where I cut before, and that's going to cut the third side of my Merry Christmas. It's going to take this part off, and I can just, while I'm at it, go ahead and finish it off. That scrap, that's ready to adhere to the card. Okay. Now you could always die cut punch or just use your paper snips and snip these out. Whatever works for you, what you've got available, and whatever style you prefer, by all means, it's going to work. So I've got those taken out, and now I'm ready to start die cutting. Now, what I have been doing, since I'm making many multiples at once, I'm going to show you my method of keeping all of my elements together. So I just found I had some little, they're actually little plastic shot glasses that were laying around my craft room just to, hold little embellishments or glue or whatever. They're really, really handy. But I just decided these work perfect for holding all the little elements for this card. So each time I'm cutting some, I'm just sticking them in one of these little glasses. The train and cars and the engine, of course, don't fit, but everything else does. And I just park this on top of, the train cars and the engine. So I'll show you my method for die cutting these elements now. I am just using, you can use washi tape, or I just use some painter's tape. I got some of the extra tackiness off, just by rubbing my finger over the part that I don't want to stick, which is going to be the colored part. Okay. And so then I am just taking, I leave just enough space so that I can see my image on either end. And I'm just going to line that up. And I'm going to tape it down. Okay. Now I have used these probably 5-6 times already. So the tape's starting to get really, it's not holding real tight. But you can get that many cuts out of a single use. And some of these I stamped just a hair too close to each other, so it's been difficult to cut all of the dies at one time. But honestly, I have to run it through more than once because some of these dies I'm having to use twice. So I'm just trying to make sure that the ones that have to get cut out twice get done first, and then the single ones can wait for the next go round. So my tree will still fit in here. I'm just lining up the star, and I'm lining up the base. And so if I can see both of those, I know I'm in the right spot, and I'm just taping it down. Same thing with my little penguin. I've just been leaving my tape here. I make sure that I'm lining up his 2 feet, and I'm lining up his little flipper, or whatever you want to call that, his arm. And it's worked out just perfect. Candy canes, I just kind of put a little piece across the bottom. I'm lining up the top of the die with the top of the candy canes. And so far, they have worked out really, really well. Now, the smokestack is in 2 pieces. So what I have been doing is I've just been cutting the single one out, and then the other 2 are on the same die together. So you've got 2 on one die and 1 separate. So this one is the separate one, if I remember correctly. This one's been a little bit trickier to align. So I kind of have to peel it back a little bit and make sure I've got it lined up correctly. There we go. And I'll just push that down. Okay, so that one's ready to go. And we'll wait. See, these are too close together to cut them all at once. So the other 2 will go when I run through the next round. There are 2 of this die, but I'm only putting 1 on my card, so I did not need to cut it twice. There are 2 penguins, but since I have to also do them on this end, I didn't tape up 2 penguins. So what I would do now is I would run this through my die cutting machine, pop all those pieces out, and then just repeat. I would do the second cut along with the train so that I have all of my pieces cut. I am not going to do that now because I've already got several of them ready to go. So we're going to just move on with the assembly part of our card. So I'm going to bring this card base back in now. We'll set that aside, and we'll just get one of our little cups and all of our little die cut pieces ready. So we've got our train, our engine, and we're going to put 1 car on each of the other 2/3 of this card. Okay. Now what I did is I tried to make sure that the wheels of all 3 pieces of the train are about center in the train tracks, so that it looks like it's going down the train tracks. And then you can just kind of decorate how you want it. I'm going to pull in my example real quick and just kind of show you what I did with mine. I'm going to dump these out. I put my Merry Christmas up here. I put the You Make the Season Jolly there. We're going to put, now you can fill your cards up any way you choose to. I put the Christmas trees on top of the cars, as though he's hauling the Christmas trees. And then I filled the cars with, this one's got presents, and I did stamp extra presents and die cut them, which I have not done yet for this card. Okay, and what you'll notice on these pieces is that there's a little bit of white at the bottom. Now, most people probably are not going to notice that, but if that bugs you like it bugs me, I am going to grab my Stampin' Blends. And I purposely, on some of the pieces, like the trees, I colored down a little further, and I just didn't remember to do that, to color further on these particular ones. So I'm just going to bring that color down to the bottom of the presents so that I don't see that white. So just a little tip to kind of, if you're a perfectionist like I am, those little things will bug you. And that's one way of correcting that. Now, I put this little thing here in front of the train, and I didn't glue my snow down hard along the top. So I can kind of tuck that up underneath the edge of the snow. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue that there, just kind of under the edge of the snow, so that it looks like the snow kind of surrounded the bottom of the post. It's buried in the snow. It's the little details, I think, that tend to really make a card look finished. So I'm just going to pop that up, and stick it under. Okay. And then I've still got just enough room to get my train engine completely on the front. You don't want the edge of the train overlapping past the fold on your card. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue that down. Again, just trying to get the bottom of the wheels about the center of the train track. And I'm going to scoot that back just a hair because I want the edge to be close to the fold there. And see, so you can see the Versamark that we've stamped in the background. Just kind of gives it a little extra added dimension. Now I'm going to get the little puffs of smoke. And what I realized as I was attaching all of my elements is that by putting the little puffs of smoke coming back this way, it gives motion to the card. It makes it look like the train is, moving in a forward fashion. And there's not really a rhyme or reason to what, what's up or what's down on these. They're just little puffs of smoke. So I did not make any special effort to try to turn them a particular way. I just wanted to make sure they look like they're coming back, like the train is moving forward and leaving the smoke behind it. Okay. And then there's not really a good way with this particular card to be able to line up the little hitch. You could cut it off, but it really didn't bug me at all that it was on there. And I didn't think anybody would notice or care enough that it's not really connected to the train engine. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on. And I want to leave enough room so that I can put one of my little penguins over here behind this car. So it is going to be fairly close to the crease. So this is almost butted up to where the fold in the card is at. And I'm just going to stick that down. and I didn't glue tight against up to the top edge. So I'm going to go ahead and do my tree now, and that's just going to kind of get slipped up underneath the edge of the train car. And just to make it a little easier, you can use your take your pick tool. Now there is some white at the top of these die cuts, so you could always just butt it up like this, which is also another option. And we'll go ahead and do this one that way so that you don't have any of that white there. And now before I do the other train car, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my little penguins down, okay? Now, I wanted them to look like they're cheering on Santa in the train. I wanted them to look excited. They do look pretty much identical. So I wanted it to look like they're jumping up and down. So this guy, I put a little lower on this side, right behind this train, right behind that car. And then the other one, I kind of put a little higher up, like he's jumping up in the air, and kind of tilted him a little bit so that, you know, they're not exactly the same. All right, and now my other train car can go on right kind of behind or over top of the edge of the penguin. About to run out of glue, I think. Again, lining those cars' wheels with the center of the tracks. All right. So now we're going to fill up our train cars, okay? Go ahead and glue this tree in place. See if I can open this up once again, make sure I'm getting all the glue out of this that I can. There we go. Prime the pump a little bit. All right. And so we'll put our tree there, top of the car. And now we're going to go ahead and fill up this back car with presents. I think I'm going to have to get more glue out. Thankfully, I've got another one handy here. All right. Now, I kind of wanted the little flag to be flying out the back end of the second car, so I've just kind of overlapped it there. And I'm going to get another one here. And I'm going to put this one in the center of this car. And before it gets too dry, I'm going to add some candy canes in that car, because I kind of like the candy canes being underneath the flag. So I'm actually going to stick those down. And I kind of did them offset a little bit so they're not perfectly straight. I want them to I want the car to look like it's overfilled with goodies and presents. And now this candy cane, I will go ahead and keep it on top of the presents. So I wanted my cars to look very, very full. Now, I used extra presents to fill up the other car. This is one that I had messed up part of my die cuts on it because I was trying to find a way to line them all up and cut them at the same time, and it just didn't work without having to retape everything. So in playing, some of them came out good and some of them did not, and so now we've got a few extra elements that I'm going to be able to steal from and use on the card. So I snipped off the flag off of this one. And let's see, I'm gonna pop it up a little higher because this one's going to go over the top of it. And again, I'm going to cut the flag off so that I have just the presents. And we'll glue those right over the top of those ones. So now our card looks really full with lots and lots of presents for the boys and girls. All right, now we're ready to go ahead and add our sentiments. Got glue stuck all over me now. And with this one, I kind of tucked it up under the edge of the Christmas tree, and I kind of like that idea, but I don't know if I glued this down too tight, if I can do that or not. We'll try it. No, I think we can do it. There we go. So there is our Merry Christmas. And now we're just going to add this other little sentiment strip. You make this season jolly. Just going to glue that right there like that. And that's it. We've got our card. And like I said, I am kind of mass producing these. So I've got a whole bunch more to assemble, but everything is now cut and colored. And you may say, oh, that's way too much coloring. I don't want to do all of that. It's just something I did while I was watching TV with the hubby out in the living room, just sat there and colored. I get in the mood to do that every now and again. So make it enjoyable and relaxing. If you don't like the blends, if you'd rather do colored pencils or markers, or maybe you don't want to color quite so much, leave it a little plainer. It doesn't have to be completely filled in. You make it yours and how you like it. So there's that card. While you're here, I just want to show you that this storybook style design can be used with lots of different stamp sets and or die sets. So I made this similar card with the Kindest Gnomes bundle. So let me just take the, just going to pull that off and open it up. And we've got Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Again, I did use the blends, but there was actually a lot less coloring on this one than some of the others. Yeah, for the train. I just cut little squares out of DSP to make some packages, and then cut this bow, this die cut bow apart. So see, we've got the full bow here. I cut it into pieces to make bows on my little packages. And then I made a Christmas tree out of the die cut mushrooms. So let me grab that and I'll show you how I did it. So I actually took white cardstock scraps, and I cut 4, like 2 each of these, and one of these 4, you can't really even see it because it's buried underneath the package, but there is a little short piece that's tucked up under the snow that's the base of the tree. But I just stacked the die cuts after I colored them. I stacked them on top of each other to kind of form a little Christmas tree. Let's see, there was not It's not a star in this set, but I had a little star in another set, so I punched it out. These little dots, actually, I think they're out of that same set. Let me grab it. Okay, so these die cuts, let me see what they're called. Okay, these are the Sentiment Silhouette dies. Okay, so the Sentiment Silhouette dies, the little tiny colored dots I cut from scrap cardstock, or you could just, actually I didn't do cardstock, or I did do cardstock, but it was white, and I just used my blend marker and made stripes. And then I put this die cut over the top and it made those little dots. And then the star was from this die cut. So again, those are called the Sentiment Silhouette dies. And there's a fabulous word stamp set, and this cuts out backgrounds to shadow the words in that stamp set. So really cute one. I haven't had time to do much with it yet, but I am loving it. So anyway, maybe you're asking what I used for this. So I did my wreath, and now I don't remember which ones I used for that. I think that came out of the Santa dies. Find those. Too many things. Yes, so those, the bow and this wreath is what I did this decoration with. So that's where those came from. But, you know, just, I did the same kind of a background with the trees and the little stars. And then I just tried to color my gnomes so they looked Christmassy. I did an extra star that he's holding. So anyway, just, they don't have to even be Christmassy. You could use this for a happy birthday card, a congratulations card, really anything you wanted to do. But I hope this has given you some fun ideas. There's some really great sets out there that would work well with this card. Let me see if there's anything else that I would recommend. I had some notes and I didn't even refer to them. I think we covered it all. So I hope you've enjoyed today's card class. I hope you got some fun ideas and that you'll give it a try. Go ahead and send me a picture of what you come up with. I'd love to see it. Until next time, happy stamping.